Hello. Welcome to the Turd of Pleasure. Here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione, I'm the Lord Chamberlain of the Enchanted Kingdom, Zip Gun. And we're going to go through the last couple of months' thrift store stuff. Because I've amassed a huge pile that I have to put away. And I thought before I put it away, I'll see if there's anything in here worth talking about. And of course there always is. And there's a fair bit, so I'm going to get kind of right to it. I bought some classical. I don't normally belabor the classical. This one's really weird. This was cheap. 3 operas plus a bunch of other stuff in a box. I think it was $1, maybe $2. But it's 3 different operas with different casts, different orchestras. The only thing they have in common is that it was all Decca recordings. 58, 59, 71, and 72 to be precise. I bought this. I don't know why I bought it. Probably I'll get rid of the other ones I've got. Maybe, maybe not. Don't listen to those operas much. I found a Shostakovich on Apex, his 10th. And who's doing this again? And again, this was a quarter. Now, here's the thing. Today, London Symphony with Rostropovich. Okay, I'll own a 10th by that. Most of these in this pile were either $2, which is the most I'll usually pay, or a quarter, and that makes a difference, boy. For example, and of course, the second I say that, I come upon 5 in a row that don't fit that bill. These are all $1. 3 of them are from the English Composer series on EMI. I collect it. I will buy it no matter what. I'm a sucker for especially William Walton. Boy, oh boy. This has Crown Imperial, which I recorded in town here in Victoria. British music is not avant-garde. It's totally tonal, but it's got lots of melodies. And then there's a John Taverner. Remember him? He made a record with Ringo on Apple way back in the day. And he's an interesting British composer. Does a lot of... I actually, to be fair, I haven't heard this yet. But for $1, I'll buy it. I found a couple of interesting ones here. Keith Jarrett doing Handel sonatas with the ever-reliable Michelle Petri on recorders. And he's playing piano on this, isn't he? No, he's playing harpsichord. Sorry, I'm wrong. Yes, Manfred Eicher produced it, but it's on RCA Red Seal. Sure, I'll buy that any day of the week for $1. And then there's this. Now, I think this also later came out on CBS, but it's Glenn Gould in Leningrad. Le Chant du Monde Melodia, which means it's probably a Russian recording. And it is a pretty historic concert for the simple reason that Mr. Gould didn't do a whole lot of concertizing, and here we are when he was just kind of at the peak of his fame, really. And that's a good thing to own. I haven't even dug out the Columbia one, but I know there is a Columbia edition of this. Okay, and finally, as far as the last of the classical, and this is really schmaltzy stuff, but I cannot resist Ennio Morricone, and I gotta say, I really like Yo-Yo Ma. Now, I don't think he's the greatest cellist ever. That would be Pablo Casals. But he's got a great heart, and he's open to a lot of stuff. And most of what he's into, I think, is very worthy. He apparently is really into Morricone. And so they don't really, it's not really made obvious here. Well, it does, I guess it is. Yo-Yo Ma plays Ennio Morricone, okay? So Morricone conducts, and Yo-Yo Ma plays, and most of these have been rejigged for the cello. So they're kind of solo showcases based on the movie music for Yo-Yo. Most of Morricone's, a lot of his stuff has wordless vocals in them, and those are replaced by cellos. It's super pleasant. It's a little cloying if you're not in the mood for it. I was glad to buy it for $1. Okay, now we're getting into some crazy stuff. We're going to go with, let's see. Well, I found a couple of, these are in the quarters. 25 cents for Dolly Parton. You know I'll buy a Dolly Parton for 25 cents. She never makes a bad record. And I think, if I remember correctly, and here's why I'll always buy I'll buy any Dolly Parton record where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 11 songs feature Dolly Parton writing credits. Massive respect for this woman. Wonderful voice. Never bad. Sometimes less than exciting. I've got a couple of her more bluegrassy records. They're a delight. They're really good. She's great. I can't get enough. Here's a great one. Now this was a quarter. All right. Now you're going to go, okay, you've lost your minds, gun. I mean, here you are telling us how bad Kiss is. And you're listening to Nana Mouskouri. Well, there's a method to my madness. And I didn't notice. I forgot to show you this. George and Tammy, Encore. It was a quarter. I'm going to give it to somebody. It's sort of a best of. It's not. It's kind of, yeah, whatever. Hardly worth mentioning. Nana, on the other hand. I wasn't going to buy. I'm not going to buy Nana Mouskouri because I'm never going to listen to it. However, as a weirdo who likes things like Phillips labels and things, and this is an old CD. There you go. What a waste of the. It's bad enough they shrunk the cover art, and then they waste a whole panel of it on that crap. However, and I haven't done really a lot of research on this. First of all, you get what is arguably the greatest photo ever of Nana Mouskouri. I've never thought of her as much of a sex kitten, but she's pretty cute in that. And this was Phillips's attempt to contemporize Ms. Mouskouri in 1987. And I should have checked. I don't know how old she would have been here. She was probably certainly middle-aged. This is the reason this perked my interest. Produced by Tony Visconti and Robin Smith. I went, really? Tony Visconti? Ooh. Now, if you don't know who Tony Visconti is, he's David Bowie, primarily Mark Bolan and T-Rex. He's done a lot. He's a major super producer. And clearly the powers that be at Phonogram figured that they wanted to make a pop/rock record with Nana to try and get her out of the sort of folk song. Nana's whole thing was folk songs in whatever language you spoke, be it Greek, German, Spanish, Italian, French, or English. And she sold, well, a lot of records. Anyway, what we have on here is pop arrangements by a fellow named Robin Smith, who is also the co-producer. Yeah. And he also plays keyboards and programming in 1987. They do a song called Unite. I don't know that one. They do Moondance. They do In My Life by the Beatles. They do Nights in White Satin. That's right. And Every Time We Say Goodbye by Cole Porter. And then they do Little Girl Blue. I don't know, Hot Rodgers and Hart. They do it. Now, here's the thing. There's things about this record that make me wonder. First, it makes me wonder if there was tension at this session. And the reason I say this is because, first of all, it's 1987. It's a Visconti co-production. He didn't co-produce much in those days. Robin Smith is the co-producer. Now, there's one song, Morning Angel, written by Mr. Visconti and somebody named Kay Coe. Don't know who that would be. And that song alone is produced by Tony Visconti alone. He also did some of the engineering, apparently. Now, the band is keyboards and programming, Graham Ward on drums, Andy Pask on bass, Mitch Dalton on guitars, sitar guitar by Tony Visconti, so he played the Dan Electro, Mel Collins on sax from King Crimson. What do King Crimson and Nana Mouskouri have in common? Mel fucking Collins. Okay, so we got a rock band here. Also on Nights in White Satin. This one made me kind of giggle. Lead guitar on Nights in White Satin by none other than the amazing Justin Hayward. And I thought to myself, wait a second, guitar solo? There's no guitar solo on Nights in White Satin. And you're right. It's a flute solo on the original. He does the flute solo on the guitar. It's kind of, well, it's terrible. orchestra led by Gavin Wright. That's a name I remember from somewhere. Recorded and mixed at Good Earth Studios, which I think was Visconti's own studio. Anyway, and then the other thing that kind of makes me wonder is that at the very end of the credits, and there isn't a whole lot of information here, remixed in Paris by André Chapelle, sound engineer Roland Guillotel. And of course, at the end, of course, there's the thanks to all my dear friends. Janty Timmer and Polygram International, London of yesterday, but also those of today. Then a bunch of people, I don't know, and Justin Hayward. Many thanks for all your care, help, and understanding. Love, affectionately. My special thanks to Roland Guillotel and Andre Chapelle, Anonymous Queries. So this makes me wonder if Visconti produced it, got muscled out of half the producing credit by the arranger, and then when the whole thing was said and done, they didn't like the mix and they got it remixed. Now, I was looking for these answers to these questions in Mr. Visconti's autobiography, which is a whole lot like this thick. And I was relatively surprised to note that Ms. Mascuri is not mentioned in the book at all by name, which is curious when you think that the super producer autobiography book doesn't mention the record he made with what is arguably the world's largest selling artist, because she sold something like 300 million records. So apparently he's working on another book. Maybe we'll find out then. Okay, then we get into jazz. Just the jazz is great. Now, again, this was $2. Verve owns 1 million copyrights to 1 million jazz recordings, and of course Verve is now just the evil Universal Empire. But they have put together this, it's just one CD, but it's basically the Cole Porter Songbook instrumental. So you get Charlie Parker, Al Cohn, Zoot Sims, Art Tatum, Dizzy Gillespie, Roland Kirk, Sonny Stitt, Clifford Brown, Max Roach, Bill Evans and Stan Getz, Bud Paul, Ben Webster, all doing instrumental versions of Cole Porter. It was $1 off. Yes, I'm buying it. You betcha. This one was maybe, this was a quarter. But, and I was like, it's really early. What year is this? 92. Fairly early, anyway. Digital reissue of Pop's RCA stuff. It is really thin on length. 10 songs, so it's about a half an hour. It's from, they do have good notes. They tell you who plays on it. And of course, it's Louis Armstrong, so it's great, but it's a little bit of a puffball thing. This, now, I again will confess, I'm going to dig into this at length. 2 CDs of Sarah Vaughan on Verve. Again, Verve has just everything. What years would these be, I'm wondering? 56, okay, so, basically, it's Sarah Vaughan in her peak doing great songs from the hit shows, and it's sort of a muchness for me, because what do we get? They're not going to tell me. They're going to tell me the dates. There we are. 56, 56, 56, 54, 55, 56. Capitol Studios, Capitol Tower. Yeah, this is all just, amazing stuff. Not really very, there's some precise information. Don't recognize any names. Anyways, long story short, what you have here is, I hate it when they do that, 18, 16, you have something like 35 terrific, like, He's Only Wonderful, My Heart Stood Still, They Say It's Wonderful, My Ship. Whenever I go fishing for old classic songs, this is the kind of thing I go digging into, because it has 1 million of them. And, yeah, Sarah Vaughan, for $1, I'll buy it. Pretty much any Sarah Vaughan. This one was just a real hit out of the park. Here's a weird one. Now, I might even have mentioned this before. I bought this a while back. This was $1. And Mary Lou Williams is very, 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 she's unknown almost. She played through almost every era of jazz, pianist. And I even have a record of her from the 70s on Pablo, where she's with Cecil Taylor. And yeah, they make it work. She was a wonderful, very, very religious lady. In fact, at this gig at the Cookery, she brought a bunch of young kids, I think from her church maybe, just to kind of hang out and have a good time with her. It's just her and a bass player. The bass player is pretty pro forma. A lot of the time, he doesn't even really play, I don't think. And there's a couple of, she does a boogie woogie on here that'll break your spine. Chiaroscuro Records, is that, maybe I'm not pronouncing that right. Great little label, guy ran it, I forget his name. He's the producer on this. And one of those great record labels, Hank O'Neill. That, labor of love. I doubt the guy ever made a nickel. And that was in the thrift store. That's a pretty rare CD, I think. Okay, geez, I keep running into these. These were at Cavity. And two more Vienna Art Orchestra records. Now, I like these guys. These guys are good. They take, and they do, this is ballads. And this is, of course, Concerto for Voice of Silence. This one's pretty neat. It's most of the records have a theme. Like they'll do Dolphy or they'll do whatever. This one is actually kind of them doing them. And it's challenging. It's unbelievably well recorded. It's on Verve, but in Austria. So on Amadeo. I'm not sure. It's all Universal. It's all the multi-headed serpent of the music industry. This one is the ballad's featuring various singers. You have got everybody from Helen Merrill, Monica Trotz, Linda Shurock, Anna Lauverniak, Betty Carter, Sheila Jordan, Ursula Dudziak, Yvonne Moore. I mean, wow. Some great singers. And it's traditional, rooted in the verities, but in that great European way. It's very creative. Another one. This is great. Now, the late, great Hugh Fraser, Victoria legend, and a really, really good jazz musician. Managed to sort of straddle the line between hard bop and other sort of more maybe traditional forms. But he played the trombone primarily, but he was also a very, very good pianist and doubled basically on piano. And years ago, I was actually asked by the local university if I knew they had a list of candidates to run their jazz program, and they mentioned Hugh, and I said, well, Hugh is pretty good, I would think, because he's local. He plays the trombone and he plays the piano, which are two totally different disciplines. And he got the job, which was great. And but he has passed away a few years back now. God, I can't remember when. But he did a great body of work. It's all good. It's all worth listening to. This is early. I love that cover. Let's get the guys and put them on the beach with the double bass. Sure, okay. What Jazz Focus Records with the giant maple. God bless him, whoever put it out. This one's pretty straight. Russ Taggart is another guy that plays in Victoria a lot. And it's a really good record. And I think I got that for $1. This too was $1. I might have mentioned this one also. Southbound by Doc Watson. Now I'll buy anything by Doc Watson for $1. But this apparently is really great because, and I listened to some of it, it's when he started actually writing some songs and sort of branching out from the super traditional. And this was $0.25, and I just had to buy this because I thought, can it possibly be what it is? And I remember when this came out. And Leon Russell was huge. He was on a real wave. And he could pretty much do anything, which is really a bad thing for an artist sometimes. And I don't know exactly, like he got so out there as far as just his sort of, like he did, his first record was quite good. Carney was quite good. Then he got into more, and this is a country record. It's a straight country record done in Bradley's barn with Owen Bradley, I do believe, and Denny Cordell producing it, and they basically do old country songs. J.J. Cale's on it, and you know what? It's pretty good. Now, it's kind of nothing fantastic. And the Battle of New Orleans, and of course it's Leon Russell singing. It's obviously him. It's a real curiosity. But for $25 I bought it, and I don't know, maybe I'll keep it. The Empress bought this and a record to be mentioned later. And she just says, I don't know, it looks like something you would buy. And by gum, she's right. Baltic Voices. Now this is one of these, I don't know how many of these labels there are in France, but there's a lot of them. And they specialize in world music, basically. The original, like, you know, take your Nagra recorder into the wilds and record stuff. And I'll buy anything of that ilk if it looks halfway authentic. And Alvidis distribution. They're pretty reliable. And yes, it's wonderful. So that was cool. Another $1 CD. Now this, I don't know, this one made me wonder. Bill Laswell. Okay, I'll take a hard look at anything with his name on it. Jaw Wobble. Okay, that goes double for Jaw Wobble. And then Bernie Worrell. Oh, now you got my interest. Okay, so what is this? So it's on Reach Out International, or as they call it, Roar. Now, old punks will remember Roar as being a cassette-only label that put out the Bad Brains and Flipper and Althonia Timms and the Flying Tigers. Who could forget that record? But they were a really sort of fly-by-night kind of label, and then they later morphed into what they are here. But Laswell had sort of come down. This is 2004. Laswell, for a while, had about 4 custom labels and major labels. He was just doing everything. This, recorded at Orange Music, Robert Musso Engineering, Additional Beat Construction, whatever that means. And there's all the information, you know, like there isn't any. They don't tell you who plays what. The writing credits are either Laswell Wobble or Laswell. Now, it doesn't sound like Jaw Wobble's bass. It is not thunderously bassy. It is also, how do I say this? It's really boring. And, but the Empress heard it and said, I like that. Maybe I'll take it for the car. And I'm thinking I might just give it to her. All right. Here, I'll do this one first. Okay, now we're getting into problematic territory. I remember this CD being released in Canada for a hot minute. The Armenian Navy Band. And information on these guys is kind of scarce, but it's a guy named Arto Tunkboy. I can't pronounce his name. Arto Tunkboyasian. Tunkboyasian. There you go. He's an Armenian. He's born in Istanbul, but he's an Armenian of Armenian stock. And long story short, he formed this band of Armenians to play basically a kind of a jazz fusion, world music, funky, and it's pretty good. But it's ultimately just a little bit too slick, and I don't know, not for nothing did it end up on Universal, but it was a local thing. It was a quarter. I heard, I have not made up my mind on it. Now, what I have made up my mind on is this. Again, the evil Universal. What have they done to Trombone Shorty? Okay, now I've heard lots of good things about this guy. He's played here in Victoria. Oh man, you got to go see him. And the raves I hear. Oh yeah, and the more I hear about this guy, the more I kind of I was suspicious. And then, oh look, and this was sealed. I actually opened this to hear it. 2006, so it's been in the bottle for that long. And so what we have here is a New Orleans trombone player with a pretty good nickname, and he's got himself a funky ass band. He's a bit of a genius. He plays a lot of instruments. And the good folks at Verve Forecast, remember that label? Laura Nero was on it, and I don't know. Anyway, it's just another fucking Universal label. But coming out of the Verve office, I suppose, which may or may not have been run by David Foster at that time. I don't remember. At any rate, Verve decides they're going to, kid, we're going to take you to the big time. Sure. Excellent. So they sign him, and they recorded in New Orleans with his band, but, we want to just get a few extra people on it. So then we get into what I call special guest hell. Okay, so special guest hell is where the record company decides that they really like you, but they can't sell you, but they know that they can sell Jeff Beck. And they know they can sell the Neville Brothers. And they know they can sell Warren Haynes. And they know they can sell Kid Rock. So suddenly all these people are on your record. Now, okay. What is this? Is it all about New Orleans? Well, here's the thing. No, it's not really about New Orleans. It's a funky record. There's a funky band. He's a pretty good trombone player, and he's also a bloody good trumpet player. But he's a little bit also, and the special guest Lenny Kravitz, he's a little Lenny Kravitz. And he's got a great bass player who I think co-writes almost everything on here. And for me, the secret with these records is ignore the songs with the special guests and just play those ones. And that gives you the sort of measure of the man, which is he's got a pretty funky ass band, but they don't really have a whole lot to say. He can play that ass off his trombone, but they're a party band. Now, the special guests, Jeff Beck plays all of 90 seconds on this, and you know what? And I'm not the biggest Jeff Beck fan. It's wonderful. It transforms what is a pretty ordinary song into something more extraordinary, let's just say. So it's pretty good. There's a couple of singers. There's a bunch of... The vocals are all not great. He's not a great singer. And so what you have is probably a great club band where half the record is just them blowing. They don't really have much to say, but it doesn't matter. They've got, they got the groove. And then the record company starts to fucking meddle with it. And the next thing you know, you have Warren Haynes, which is okay. So it's kind of horrible, but if you listen between the lines, you can hear what Trombone Shorty's all about. I'm willing to bet if you had a live club recording of this guy, it would be a hell of a lot more interesting than this. But there you go. I'm going to probably sell that. This was a quarter. Now, Johnny Nash, I don't know about you, I barely remember Johnny Nash. I do remember, of course, like most pop fans of the day, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. And that was a big hit. What I didn't realize was he was a singer well before that in the sort of soul arena, if you will. But his stuff never penetrated where I lived. And the other thing I didn't realize was he was, and the notes in here, which are in these, this is an old CD, I hate these, hatred. But the notes are useful because they emphasize that this is his reggae album, by the way. I didn't even mention that, did I? Johnny Nash, the Reggae Collection. Now, this is strange because they don't include his greatest hit. At least, not the version that was the hit. They put in an alternative version, which is pretty different, which I thought was really weird. You didn't put his biggest hit on. No, the point is, and that's probably on another record somewhere, but the point was that these are his reggae kind of records. And they point out he's not a reggae singer. He's a pop singer, but he was doing reggae. And fully half of these songs were written by none other than Bob Marley. And to hear them sung by a pop singer is a bit of a lesson in how a pop, like of Marley's pop sense. He knew how to write a great pop song. His voice was just too Jamaican to pull off some of these things. But, and Nash kind of changes the arrangements a little bit. Nash produced all his own recordings. This is actually a great CD. And I'm keeping it for sure. And I put it in the same category as Jimmy Cliff. But Jimmy Cliff's a reggae singer, and this guy is not a reggae singer. And the notes are careful to emphasize that, which I'm grateful for. And my friend Rob the Gong Czar in Kelowna has got me hypersensitive to all things Vangelis. If it's $1 or less, I'll buy it. This was $1. Soil festivities. It's what you might expect. It starts with a thunderstorm, and I think it's part of a trilogy where Vangelis was sort of ruminating over the earth and nature and whatnot. And there's not much you can say. It's great Vangelis. Lots of he's really keen to synthesize real sounds, and he's very good at that. There's not a lot of what I would call deeply synthetic sounding synthesis on this, and of course that's sort of his stock and trade, is melodic sounding synthesizer music. And it's, he never made a bad record, so there you go. This was free, ladies and gentlemen. And I sort of sneered, oh God, Jesus, this thing. And I kind of looked at it, and there's a lot to not appeal about this. Like, I'm a nerd. I remember when this came out, it was on Cotillion Records, which was the redheaded stepchild of Atlantic. And in England, it was on Island. Well, this is on, well, what's it on? Okay, let's see. Rhino. Okay. Rhino owns Warner, Atlantic, etc. Fine. But then it says 1970 Lead Class Limited. Now that could conceivably be Lead Class. But that apparently is the company that has been set up by the powers that be to collect any remaining royalties that come out of ELP things. So Lead Class, or Lead Class, is the company, which is a shame because they also had Manticore, and as a label nut, I loved Manticore. I thought Manticore was great. They signed PFM. What's not more to like? Moving right along, we're getting to the head of the pimple, folks. Again, I think this was a quarter. The Best of the Everly Brothers on Rhino. Normally, Rhino best ofs are fabulous. This is no exception. This is all the Everlys I think I need. It's got, and further to my studies of the history of Warner Brothers records, which I've sort of been engaged in forever now, this record is pretty important because it's got Kathy's Clown, which was the first big record Warner Brothers ever had. And moving right along, we have, again, maybe the second big record Warner Brothers ever had, which was Peter, Paul, and Mary. Now, I actually think I paid $2 for these. They're in great shape, yet they don't show up very often. And this is their second album, and these came out fast. Boy, bang. People forget that these guys were a pop band, essentially. They hit the charts. Yep. And the great thing about this was Lemon Tree was the big hit off of the first one. But it wasn't a single. And they had a promo guy in San Francisco make a bunch of acetates just on his own accord, giving them all the radio stations, and all these orders for this non-existent single started coming in. And Joe Smith says, well, there is no single for Lemon Tree. And Don Graham says, well, there better be because everybody wants it. Bingo, huge hit. Where Have All the Flowers Gone? If I Had a Hammer. It's stuff we don't even think about. I mean, they're just considered like tradition, folk songs. Well, no, they were actually part of this. And this one is more of the same, including Puff the Magic Dragon. You got it. This land is your land. But I'm going to listen to these, and I haven't gotten to them yet, because I want to hear the deep cuts. Some of these, you don't even think about them. You can just hear them in your head. But these are important records in the history of pop music. All right, we've come to my favorite. I was going to do a special video all about bad idea tribute records. Bad ideas. And I was going to do a separate video on this, but then I went looking for Kiss My Ass, the tribute record to Kiss, and I realized I don't have it anymore. And then I went to see where my copy of Fast and Bulbous was, tribute to Captain Beefheart, and I don't seem to have that anymore either. And then I went to see, what was the other one I went looking for? And it was also missing. And then I realized that's because these records are all fucking shit. And I've got two here. Well, this one isn't shit, but this is a misbegotten. This is a bad idea. Before he died, the good folks at Capitol decided that they wanted to keep making records using him, but he was sort of whatever, fine. And so this came out. Now this is what would you call this? American-made world played. Now if you're going, that's a weird title. That's because the kind of selling slogan, if you will, of the Gibson Les Paul model is American-made world played. And so this is, in a kind of a funny way, it's kind of a promo record for the Gibson Les Paul guitar featuring Les Paul. Now, it's not terrible, but Sting and Josh Stone, I don't want on my CD. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Edgar Winter, and Noah Hunt. They grave dug Sam Cooke and added Eric Clapton to him. Now, yeah, there's some bad ideas on this record. And now the good news is I'm going to keep it because there's a couple of actual Les Paul cuts on it. Who fucking knew? And there's a great little story by Steve Miller. The liner notes are really affectionate. Steve Miller knew Les Paul when he was like 5. But there's a lot of guitar players on this record. Boy, oh boy, Les Paul, Steve Lukather. Next song, Les Paul, Steve Lukather. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Fran Cathcart. Third song, Les Paul guitar, Hiram Bullock guitar. Fourth song, Peter Frampton lead and background vocals guitar. Les Paul guitar. Like Les Paul's on every record, on every song, but like it's, So Into You is a Peter Frampton track with Les Paul on it. Pretty good version of Bad Case of Lovin' You by Moon Martin, but done by Billy Gibbons. And that's fun. Like, some of it's okay. It would be great on a mixtape. Sam Cooke and Eric Clapton's a little hard to take. And then there's a couple that he does a great little version of Caravan with Abe Laboriel on bass, who's a great bass player. I love the guy. Richie Sambora, no. Johnny Rzeznik, I don't know who that is. Steve Miller and Les Paul doing Fly Like an Eagle. Mick Hucknall on lead vocal. What year is this? You can almost date it by the Mick Hucknall. At any rate, it was $1, I think. Is there any date on this at all? 2005. Yeah, it's okay. There was a couple here like Joe Perry, Les Paul, Kenny Olson, Hiram Bullock on guitars. Some of these have like 5 guitar players on them. Yeah, Keith Richards, Rick Derringer, rest in peace, Les Paul, Hiram Bullock. It's crazy, and it really is kind of, and I think everybody's playing Les Pauls. So it's sort of like, I don't know. I hope Les got paid. That's all I can say. A tribute to the father of the electric guitar, Les Paul, the man who changed the music. They don't come right out and say it, but okay. Spectacularly bad ideas. Now, if you're going to do a tribute record, it has to be done with some thought and some affection. And, you got to think of the spirit of the band that you're paying tribute to. So, when Radioactive Records approached Johnny Ramone, who was at that point in time the sole surviving member of the Ramones, sadly, they asked if they could do a tribute record, Radioactive Records being their final label, and the label that really put paid to their reputation, in my opinion, because just about every record they put on Radioactive is garbage. And, what's his name, Gary Kurfürst or whatever, gets the great idea to do, let's milk as much money out of this corpse as we can. What do you say, Johnny? Johnny says, fine, as long as I have complete creative control. Because, Johnny, he was a little bit of a control freak, so they go, sure, whatever. So he enlists his good pal and kindred spirit, I'm sure, Rob Zombie. So Rob Zombie, and he makes basically the co-producer of the tribute to the Ramones, and they entitled it We're a Happy Family. Rob very kindly took care of the cover art for this and contributes a performance or two. Now, this, to say that this is the worst record I've heard in a long time. Now, there are moments. They're brief, boy. For example, I never thought I would be saying this in this channel. The best thing on this record is Tom Waits. That's right, he does The Return of Jackie and Judy, and by God, it's great. It's a terrible recording. Tom sounds like he's out of his mind, but he probably isn't. And it's done. It doesn't really sound like the Ramones, but the form is there. So I kind of enjoyed that. There's also a not dreadful version of Something to Believe In, because it's very different, by The Pretenders, Chrissie Hynde, essentially. There are recordings, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend by Pete Yorn, who I am simply not familiar with. And then there's Here Today, Gone Tomorrow by somebody called Rooney, another band that has just not crossed my radar. But, oh my God, it's like, who did they round up for this? Well, this was on Radioactive / Columbia. So we're dealing with Sony, 2003. So it opens with Havana Affair by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who A, play it very unfunky, and B, slow it down to a fucking crawl. And it's terrible. Followed by Blitzkrieg Bop by Rob Zombie, which is unrecognizable. It's garbage. I Believe in Miracles by Eddie Vedder with Zeke. And then you get into, like, a lot of the bands, Metallica, you think, oh my God. Metallica do a workmanlike job of 53rd and 3rd. They kind of go, a lot of the bands here, they just said, let's just get through this in one piece. And so they kind of do it. Metallica it's there, it's fine. U2 is on this. I mean, we're getting into the depths here. So Bono is on this record, along with Rob Zombie, right? Along with the fucking Chili Peppers. So they do Beat on the Brat, and Bono does a cute little kind of an affected vocal that's completely useless. And it's just, And then, oh God, it's terrible. The appropriately named Garbage, Do I Just Want to Have Something to Do? Which is okay, it's kind of the Ramones of the Girl Singer. Green Day does Outsider, it's just running through the motions. Rancid to Sheena's a Punk Rocker, same thing. I Want to Be Sedated by The Offspring. I couldn't tell any of these bands from each other. But wait, it gets worse. It gets worse, my God. There's The KKK Took My Baby Away by, of all people, Marilyn Manson, that punk, and he's just terrible. It's an insult to the intelligence of anybody who loved the Ramones. The worst band in the world, and you all know who I'm going to say this is, do a version of Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? And you know what? They actually nail it, because that's the perfect song for Kiss to cover by the Ramones, because it's the whole, it wasn't a great Ramones song. It was kind of a made-to-order thing for their movie. It could, and the great thing is, most of these bands, it could be anybody. I don't know who the fuck it is. They don't sound like themselves, and it's almost like they think, oh, we got to do this right, or also going to look really bad. There's a bonus track, it says here, Daytime Dilemma by Eddie Vedder with Zek. This is just absolutely fucking terrible. And the thing is, it's almost like it's boredom punctuated by horror. And it starts, it's just like, you're like, oh God. It's like, it's like you set up on your vacation camping ground and suddenly you realize you're next to a septic field. And then you get into things like the Metallica and the U2, and you're going, these guys are just, this is so boring. And then suddenly Marilyn Manson comes on, and you go, please take me now. I'm keeping this. Baby, I'm keeping this. But this is the epitome of the bad idea tribute record. And the Ramones, boy, do they deserve better than this. If you want a great Ramones tribute done with love and affection and humor that's totally kick-ass and is in the spirit of the band itself, go listen to the Hanson Brothers, because that's exactly what they are. And that's what I say. If you want to get a great Ramones tribute, that's the best Ramones tribute I know of. Anyway, there you go. That was a couple of months of stuff. Thanks for watching. It got a little bit long. That's okay. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we're only a bit of the way. We've got Grandpa Big Balls in the drone fest here. We will get back at you with new things. We got stuff coming out. We got box sets. Things are jumping. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you later.